Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. President Trump met with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung at the White House today. The two leaders talked trade, troops, and engaging North Korea. Joining us now to discuss the key takeaways from today's meeting is foreign policy and national security analyst Armin Kurdian. He's also a retired U.S. Navy captain. Armin, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here now ahead of the meeting. President Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "What is going on in South Korea seems like a purge or revolution. We can't have that and do business there." But during the meeting, it seemed quite warm between the two leaders. What's your main takeaways from today's summit?
Certainly. Good afternoon, Tiffany. So I think the issues regarding the purges or the raids on the particular church, I think got cleared up pretty quickly. They were connected to the ousted previous president of South Korea, who tried to declare martial law a couple of times. So there were some looking discussions on there. And ultimately, it ended up not being an issue. The good news is that U.S. and South Korea have $242 billion in trade between the two countries, and that number has been increasing significantly. So that is a big part of the discussion there today, as well as peace and meetings with Kim Jong-un in the North. The North hasn't necessarily responded yet to Trump's entreaties, but Donald Trump recognizes the importance of South Korea as an economic and as a military partner. So I think this meeting was very, very good, and the relationship will continue to grow stronger.
A lot to unpack here for sure. As you mentioned, trade was high on the agenda today, with South Korea's lead touting a $150 billion offer to make American shipbuilding great again. It's part of the trade deal struck last month and would include construction, training, and maintenance. As a retired Navy captain, what do you make of this package?
Well, South Korea knows something about building ships when you consider where they are. I mean, they are on a peninsula. They're the only land border they share is with a hostile neighbor to the north. So they have been a seafaring nation for thousands of years. So the U.S. understands it needs to get much better at building ships and building a merchant fleet as well. But in the meantime, South Korea can build them fast, they can build them quickly, and they can build lots of them. So partnership there would significantly strengthen not only America's economic security, but frankly, our national security by improving and strengthening lines of logistics across the ocean, which covers nearly 70% of the Earth's surface. So there's that maritime side is very, very important. And as for military ships, the U.S. has been known to sell military vessels and military equipment to South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and those other Asian nations in the Indo-PACOM region that are going to be vital allies to us in case there is any kind of conflict with China. So strengthen that military cooperation and those continued exercises that we have with them, both the military side and on the logistics side, must continue to strengthen.
And as you mentioned, another big topic was North Korea. South Korea's Lee encouraging Trump to engage with North Korea as a peacemaker, even suggesting that he build a real estate complex there. Now, Trump said he'd like to meet with Kim Jong-un this year. What are you anticipating on that front, given North Korea has been more aggressive and Kim has ignored Trump's calls for direct diplomacy this year?
Ultimately, I think the North will want to meet with the president somewhere because from a public relations standpoint for the North Korean regime, it's simply something that's too valuable to ignore. They did it previously, and the North is very excited. You remember when I think it was Kim Jong or Kim Jong-il got a picture, I think it was Il, with President Bill Clinton. It was very, very excited about it, and they publicized it everywhere. Just a photograph. It wasn't even a real meeting. So the North will meet with the president. Whether or not anything actually comes of it remains to be seen. The North will continue to remain a hostile state because, frankly, the entire country is built on a cult of personality across the entirety of Kim Jong-un's family and ultimately whoever is going to succeed him as president and prime minister and dictator of North Korea. 40% of their GDP goes into military equipment and their defense, as well as nuclear weapons. I think the biggest concern right now for the United States is North Korea's surge to building ballistic missiles, which are capable of going basically all the way across the world and hitting the continental United States, which is basically creating our impetus to implement some measure of Golden Dome. You're not going to be able to do it all at once, but a missile defense against North Korea to take out that threat is going to be vital to our national security.
And on that note, what is South Korea's relationship with North Korea and China? For example, while Lee is here, he also sent a delegation to China calling for normalization of ties between the two. Could we see South Korea move closer to China and away from the U.S.?
Well, remember, they live there. A lot of these countries, which we look to as allies, the Philippines, Japan, and the other Asian nations, they live in that part of the world. So they need to have some measure of a good relationship with China, even if it's just based on economic trade. From a military standpoint, it's going to be vital, as in our discussions, in case there is any kind of Indo-PACOM conflict, that South Korea be a part of the coalition, basically stop China, because frankly, if China can then influence military operations in that region of the world and push out the U.S., then South Korea is going to be very, very isolated, and that is not somewhere they want to be, and potentially forcibly reintegrated with the North on terms that are not their own. But on an economic standpoint, economy builds peace, it builds trade, it builds relationship, it builds understanding. So it makes perfect sense for China and South Korea to build economic ties, and perhaps through that kind of economic cooperation, provide some measure of diffusion to any tensions that might exist in that part of the world.
And given all of that, what does all of this mean for U.S.-South Korea relations going forward?
Ultimately, it needs to remain strong. It needs to remain bold. The U.S. has 28,500 troops in that nation. I would not recommend reducing that number at this point, because they're not just there, frankly, to defend South Korea from North Korea, although it would be nice if perhaps some of the other nations around the world provide additional forces as well. There's international contingents there, but the U.S. has definitely got the massive lion's share to do that. Those troops are there to help defend, perhaps if they need to rapidly respond to other parts of the world in that region, as well as U.S. equipment, maritime prepositioning ships to basically quickly send vehicles or other types of war material where they need to go. So it is a very strategic location. It is a vital U.S. national interest to maintain that kind of relationship and basically continue to be able to influence issues and other things of U.S. interest in that part of the world, as it is just as much with the U.S. In Europe and in the Southern Hemisphere.
Well, Armin Kurdian, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Stephanie.